Marilyn saying to question 3, I would encourage deaf or hearing parents to take workshops, learn ASL, learn about deaf culture. I think that they should be encouraged to teach their kids ASL. Yes, lip reading is important, but that's the beginning of language for them. And also be around maybe other deaf kids. I think that would be helpful too. David's answer to question 3 is here. I feel like it's important to expose kids to ASL and also bring in maybe deaf role models for them to meet, refer them to a program that would offer those kinds of things and offer support. I think that's probably the most important thing. Ed's answer to question 3. You have to introduce them to successful deaf adults from different backgrounds, and give them exposure to people that went to schools for the deaf or people that went to mainstream schools, so that they have those different backgrounds to be exposed to. Introduce them to maybe their parents as well, those deaf people's parents, to see how they went about educating their deaf child. I've seen a lot of deaf, including people that I knew who eventually could have become successful, but now are on SSI, disability, because they didn't have that exposure. Their speech isn't good enough, their education isn't good enough, because they were expected to learn speech reading. I think it should be like Scandinavia. If they find a student's deaf, immediately they call us a representative from the school district and from the Deaf Educational Services, and they will evaluate that kid to find out the best way to educate them based on their hearing ability. I think that's what needs to be provided from the outset. Brenda's saying, I think it would be great if there was some early intervention services for deaf children born into hearing families, like have a team of deaf and hearing professionals coming in to explain the options, to provide information about what is available out there, explain all of the different options, and so they have a good idea of what they need to do, and expose them to successful deaf people so that they see what the options are. Maybe they, it gives a kid a burden already if they're given too many expectations, but give them options of what's out there so that they can choose from that and see what's a best fit for them. And also train them how to communicate with their child, because I remember there's a videotape, I think, that researched kids up to age, I think they were 4 or 5, the kids in this video. And there was one with a hearing mother and a hearing daughter, and the kid and the mother were speaking together, and then I think it was a puzzle they were putting together, and it showed the mother speaking to the child about how to put the puzzle together, offering her encouragement and teaching along the way, not showing her what to do, but just teaching or just modeling. And then there was another with a mother who could hear with a deaf boy, and she would just take his hand and put it where he was supposed to put it, and she was basically just telling him, put this here and put that there. The third option was deaf mother and a deaf child, in the same situation, and the mother was doing the same thing. Maybe suggesting, try this, do that, and the kid, would pick up a piece and have it one way, and then finally get it the right way, and the mother encouraged him when he was doing it correctly. Just beginning to give problem-solving ability at this early age. That is what's important. So what's important, if you don't have that at an early age from when your child is an infant, it's going to be really difficult. That is a key to successful rearing of your child. Question 4. Suppose you had the power to change deaf education as it is now across our entire country. If you were responsible for that, what would you do? Marilyn's saying, I guess I would require that ASL is offered from an early age as a first language. They would be required to be exposed to deaf culture. Encourage parents to get involved with their children. I have a whole list of things, but I guess those are places I would start. Also, children need to see deaf educators, deaf role models. That's a key for them to see who deaf people can grow up to be. That's their future. That's the key to their future, to see successful deaf people as adults. David's saying, wow, that is a hot topic. 10 years ago compared to now, there was a bicultural, bilingual approach, multicultural approach to education that came out, using ASL and English equally in the educational setting, teaching English and teaching ASL at these places. One issue I think that would be one to talk about is not so much about culture, but adding deaf culture to the curriculum from K to 12. Yes, speech and English are both skills that deaf people need to be exposed to as well. So that would be a part of my dream. But make sure that there are deaf role models for these children. I think the bicultural, bilingual approach is the way to go. Mark saying, wow, what would I do? I guess I would like to see every deaf child taught to the best of their ability. I don't think that that's where they're leading now. They're not taught to realize their full potential. I feel like they're sort of being trained to be successful in a mainstream setting, but not taught to be successful as deaf people. There needs to be a place where deaf people can feel safe to excel. maybe community colleges could offer that kind of opportunity. And it wouldn't just be for deaf people, but for hearing people who are interested as well. And then that could get us to a more, I guess, the fighting the political system is the issue. There are different fields that might be are open to deaf people. It would be great to have different programs that are helping deaf people become successful in culinary arts or education or a whole host of things. I'd like to see a 24-hour all deaf channel on the television. So a lot of deaf people are dependent on government subsidies for their income. I'd like to see that be a lot less as well. Here's Ed's response. Okay. I support the bilingual, bicultural approach to education, but I would emphasize speech as well, because I think that's a benefit for any child. A couple of months ago, there were some statistics that were put out on people who have good speech and not good speech and the work opportunities they have. There's a strong correlation between working and being able to speak well. So I think that's important to offer speech. I would pull in successful people that are involved with helping these people become competent lip readers, whether it's audiologists or speech therapists. And also, we need to expose those people to deaf people directly so that they know who they are working with. I would require parents to take sign classes, take classes on how to raise deaf children and so forth. Often the problem is that, this is where education begins before the kids are even in school. If there's no exposure to language, they don't even know, some of these kids don't even know the names of their families. So it's a catch-up game once they get into school, and sometimes it's too late. You need a foundation of language that many of these families don't have, and it needs to start in the home. Maybe the school districts need to hire deaf people to go into homes where there are deaf children to make sure that there's intervention, to make sure that families are getting the resources they need to be able to offer language to their children. It's also important that we need deaf people in the higher levels of power in the administration of the education field. So I think that's the way we can get more of this bilingual, bicultural approach, which we don't have now. I think it's a little bit watered down, and it could be a lot better. Brenda's saying, okay, I love that. I love that idea. I'm open to new ideas, new techniques. I wouldn't ignore the old ways that worked in the past. I would keep those, and I would add to those. I am a strong supporter of early use of sign language for children, not only deaf children, but hearing children as well. I would encourage them to learn to read and write early. If they're interested in using whatever hearing they might have, I would certainly encourage kids that have that facility to practice lip reading and so forth, those skills. we're not going to be able to, I think, we don't want to beat people over the head with these things. We need a friendly approach to these experiences. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It's going to be torture for these kids. Now, remember, I remember being, when I was learning to write, if someone really criticized what I was doing, I just felt so demoralized, and I wasn't motivated to continue. If you want people to write more, you kind of have to take a little bit of a hands-off approach, I think. If, maybe just correct a little bit or ask what clarification is, and this could be done in sign language, the editing of the English. It's, I feel like kids need to feel like they're not making so many mistakes so that they don't become demoralized. But basically, I'm open to new ideas, but not getting rid of the old things that worked. Here's Jenny's answer to question 4. I would certainly appreciate patience, I guess. You could certainly encourage kids to ask their teachers for help. If they need help with their English, that could be something we could encourage. And it's the same, I think, with educating hearing kids. Really the same information. If things are good, or some things are good, if those things work, keep them.